What did school teach you that was blatantly false once you researched it on the internet? I had a second grade teacher tell me that the reason parachutes had holes in them was because without the holes the parachuters would never come down to earth. When I asked why parachuters didn't stay up there as long as they wanted and only cut out the hole when they wanted to come down, she drew a diagram on the board which showed how a parachuter could never reach the top of the parachute, so they had to cut the holes beforehand. When I was in high school, a science teacher tried to tell me that the sky was blue because the ocean was being reflected onto the sky. I insisted he was mistaken, but he insisted he knew better because he was the science teacher. Sigh. I thought the sky was blue because it was reflecting off the ocean. Dang it a heck. Not in school, but when I was about 9 I asked my dad why my uncle's Brazilian girlfriend had such a small bathing suit. He proceeded to tell me about the Brazilian fabric shortage of '84. I believed him for about 5 years. My father used to tell us ridiculous false information all the time. The catch was if we could catch one out and prove him wrong, he'd give us $1. As we got older it would got a little less outrageous, but we'd still get that $1 if we could prove it. Looking back, it was a good way to get us to think for ourselves. Once a teacher wrote the incorrect then on the chalkboard. I believe I was in 4th grade. A bright student pointed the mistake out and the teacher replied back, actually you can use either then or them in any case. They are interchangeable. It's recommended to always use then, however. That fricked me up for a long time. That's the worst one here, because it's so common and visible. Every paper you ever wrote had those words in it. My kindergarten teacher said that lightning split clouds in half, and thunder was when the clouds smashed back together. I took it seriously for 7 years. I wish that was true though. Sounds freaking awesome. The British won the Second Battle of Bunker Hill because they wore sunglasses, knowing that Washington would tell his troops not to fire until they saw the whites of their eyes. This came from my 7th grade history teacher. That's the greatest lie in this whole thread. Worst ever? That Hitler only targeted the Jews because his mother died after being operated on by a Jewish doctor. That gem came from my 10th grade history teacher. The Germans made lampshades out of Jews. Don't forget the bars of soap. When using web sources, .org websites are more reliable than .coms, because .coms are trying to sell you something. Was probably true once upon a time. That taste buds corresponding to specific tastes are concentrated in quadrants around the tongue. It didn't actually dawn on me how idiotic this principle was until just a couple weeks ago. I remember doing an experiment in 2nd grade to test these results, and when the experiment didn't work we were told that we were doing it wrong. That the one who does the work gets the credit. We had a comparative religion project in 9th grade that the other 2 people refused to do on religious grounds, which wound up with me researching. I think it was Shinto for 2 weeks. Turned it in and mentioned that I had done it alone, since the other 2 people in my group had actually told the teacher that we're not doing this. A week later, everyone in my group got an A on that dang thing, despite 2/3 of the group doing nothing but dicking off in class for 2 weeks. I had a teacher tell me that when Jewish children reach 12 years of age, their parents play that game Trust with them where you fall backwards and let people catch you. The difference, she said, was that the Jewish parents let their kids fall to teach them not to trust anyone. Didn't really need the internet to know that one was BS. The Brontosaurus. In all fairness, I think most of the scientific world was duped by this one, but it was my favorite dino growing up. I had a dream as a kid that I had a pet Brontosaurus for a pet named Bronte. He lived in my backyard and gave me rides to school on his head. I was very disappointed trying to do research later that the Brontosaurus is actually the bones of 2 different dinos that got incorrectly matched up. Shattered my kid dream. My honors biology teacher in 9th grade told me that daddy long legs spiders were incredibly poisonous, but were harmless because their fangs could not penetrate human skin. Later, I saw the Mythbusters episode where they each take turns being bitten by the daddy long legs with little or no effect. I thought this was true until just now. You can be anything you want if you work hard enough. Balls. I cannot be a fighter pilot because I lack depth perception. You're not trying hard enough. Go invent robot eyes. In 4th grade I had this really freaking stupid teacher. We were going over what synonyms were in class, and she asked me to tell the class what a synonym for ridiculous was. I was a pretty smart kid and answered with ludicrous. For some reason she thought I was talking about the rapper, Ludacris, and berated me for making fun of him. She then went on about how rude it was to insult a musician and that I might have offended someone in the class who liked him. She apparently didn't know that ludicrous was a word, whereas 9-year-old me was well aware. We then began arguing over whether or not it was a real word, and she got really mad and called the principal in. He gave her a funny look and told her I was right. TLDR. I had an argument with my 4th grade teacher over whether or not ludicrous was a word. Christopher Columbus proved the world was round. False. People knew it was round since Aristotle's time. Cute white scroot meme. The Greeks even knew the correct size. Columbus thought it was 30% smaller, just because he had a hunch or something, and would have gotten himself and his crew killed if that extra 30% didn't happen to contain 2 continents. In the 1st grade, our school was still using mimeograph machines to make copies of handouts. For those too young to remember, get off my lawn. Damn it, the printing quality of these machines was horrible. I misread a very blurry math problem, something like 3 + 4 equals as 3 4 equals and wrote -1 as the answer. When the problem was counted as wrong and argued with the teacher, I was told, by a mathematics teacher, there's no such thing as negative numbers. In 8th grade, right after 9/11, my teacher told us that our middle school could easily be the next terrorist target because terrorists go after places with high volumes of people. He then drew a diagram of the people jumping out of the towers. I should have known right then that he was a little messed up, but instead, I spent most of the next few days in that class just imagining a plane crashing into the middle school in a small, suburban town in Connecticut. I believed that sucker because I was all, he's my teacher, why would he lie? He knows things. Until I told my grandpa what he'd said and my grandpa was like, frick that guy, he's wrong. I like your grandpa. Most things about sex. My public high school sex ed course had various speakers and books that all had conflicting information regarding the effectiveness of different types of birth control. It seemed purposeful in order to give us false information in every direction, so we would be too scared to have any kind of sex whatsoever. Example. One speaker said that condoms were only 60% effective when used properly. A pamphlet said 75%. Our ancient textbook said something like 90%. Our worksheet said something like 96%. They also said that the only safe method of preventing pregnancy was abstinence. You're probably going to get pregnant no matter what you do since none of the above really work too well. So only have sex once or twice when you want to have children after your wedding. Now, normally girls weren't that too worried and they were going to teen mom it if something went awry. However, since I was born with a genetic disorder I needed correct information to prevent pregnancy, so I went to the interwebs. My cousins, homeschooled and super religious, did not have that luxury. They said Jesus would prevent them from getting pregnant. My aunt and uncle now have 5 grandchildren from teenage pregnancies. I am 24 and am planning my first pregnancy with my husband after we spent a year going through genetic counseling. I have phenylketonuria, and it's pretty serious. If I do not plan a pregnancy and adhere to a very strict diet, the high amounts of phenylalanine in my blood will cause irreversible brain damage in the fetus, profound mental retardation in the fetus, fatal heart defects in the fetus, microcephaly, or pregnancy loss. I literally have no idea why people can't give teenagers the correct information when it comes to these things. I am very lucky to have had the forethought to research everything when I was a stupid teenager. Thanks for saving my children, internet. Had a grade school teacher that told us that wind didn't affect aerodynamics. Then I had to learn how to calculate airspeed, and was completely fricked. History. All of history. As a phenomenal college professor of mine said, it's the only subject that has to be completely retaught in college. A missionary at my school told us we have an emotional connection to any pornster we fap to. Also, there are only 4 days a month girls can get pregnant. I was told in 2nd grade that Christopher Columbus was a nice guy who became friends with the natives. I got hit with a blast of truth later in life. I sad-faced. If you ever use LSD, it will stay in your spinal fluid forever, and when you crack your back, it will give you a flashback. And if you ever try to join the military, they will give you a spinal tap, and upon discovery of the acid in your spine, imprison you for possession. While you don't exactly need the internet to know this, the librarian at my school was scolding me for exercising some senior privileges one day and let slip the sentence free thinking is bad. I mean, bro. She was a terrible librarian for saying that, and I apologize to you for that on behalf of the profession. I went to Catholic school. The crap I got taught about other religions alone. Man. My mom was a practicing Mormon and I remember a particularly vitriolic argument with my 10th grade religion teacher because she was spewing utter nonsense about Mormon theology. I'm staunchly ex-Mo, but if you're gonna criticize them, at least be accurate. That the male mind thinks of sex every X amount of seconds. I was unaware that we as a society have already mastered mind reading. Okay, this is so ridiculous as to seem untrue, but unfortunately for us all, it is. I had a teacher in 6th grade teach the class that there is no gravity anywhere but Earth and the sun isn't a star because if it was we would all burn up. I let the sun star thing go because how does one argue definition? I asked how we were able to walk on the moon and she said they must have used cables. Never paid attention after that day. Yes. They both happened on the same day. Obviously I didn't need the internet to know this was balls. This was the same teacher that showed a bunch of 6th graders a gash on her leg from where her mom allegedly tried to abort her. An English teacher once told us that picture and picture were homonyms, the same word that can mean two different things. She pronounced them both as picture. I tried arguing with her, but she wouldn't listen to me. The same teacher told us that anytime a sentence has a comma, you put quotations around the last part. That if you make it to the end of 12th grade and graduate high school, you go to college and get more school. After you finish that, you will be very successful. You can get any job you want. That is a lie. Frick it. I had a science teacher that told us evolution wasn't real and that we should disregard that part of the book. Didn't need the internet for this one. I was told these are the best years of your life in the 7th grade. Apparently responding with then why shouldn't I go home and kill myself right now was not the proper thing to do. 1. You will have to use cursive every day of your life past the 5th grade. 2. The only way to succeed is to go to college. Also, pretty much everything you learn in history class is filled with half-truths or is woefully incomplete. I think they might have also taught you incorrectly that past and past are interchangeable. I didn't even have to go onto the internet to find this out. Me, being a total dupe, once tried to cook a couple of sausages in the microwave. This ended with black sausages, smoke alarms going off for 10 minutes, and blackened sausages. 1 week later, my science teacher tells the class that you can't burn food in the microwave. I put my hand up and told the class about my scenario. Idiot didn't know what to say. He's never forgotten to put water in his microwave noodles then. When I was in 2nd grade I asked my teacher if the continents used to be connected, since that is what it looks like on a map. South America would fit perfectly into Africa's west coast for example. She said number. Asked my physics teacher in 5th grade if she believed in life after death and why. She said yes and explained it by saying that energy can never be destroyed and that everything is essentially energy. Now, I can't prove there isn't a life after this one, but her logic is flawed. It is a specific state of energy that creates my body and my mind. When my body rot away, the energy I now consists of will still be present but in another form. It's like looking at a wooden house and insist that it's still a tree, and some other things. Columbus discovered America. I will one day need cursive. I won't always have access to a calculator of some sort. Eratosthenes was not even mentioned when talking about flat versus sphere Earth. I thank Carl Sagan for my interest in science, because the schools I went to before the age of 16, the age when we first are allowed to customize our learning experience here in Sweden, serenely didn't inspire or teach me at all. I won't always have access to a calculator of some sort. To be fair, it's quite useful to be able to do simple arithmetic on the fly, though you can get by without it. My 7th grade teacher swore up and down that if the earth was an inch closer further away from the sun we'd all burn freeze to death. That bee lied through her mustache. She was an English teacher. That you are a unique flower and to reach for your dreams. It's all fine and dandy, but the world is harsh. No one gives the slightest crap about you being a unique flower and your dream. It will not be given to you and you will have to fight tooth and nail to get there. One of my favorite quotes. You're unique, just like everyone else. A friend's teacher recently said that men have one less rib than women. He was a religion teacher, so I guess it was understandable. My religious parents taught me that when I was young. Crazy. Didn't need the internet for these, but in 10th grade, my history teacher told me that there has never been a US president who was impeached. One quick flip through the book proved him wrong. In 11th grade, the same teacher told me that communists invented the color red. Invented a primary color. I'm imagining that inside this teacher's head is Karl Marx coloring in an apple with a red crayon. Nature. 1. Communism. 0. I am Texan and I was taught that Texas can secede from the Union whenever it wants. This is not true at all, although Rick Perry apparently believes it. That white men stormed into Africa and dragged black men kicking and screaming from their tribal homes to sell as slaves. Actuality, white men purchased slaves from black slavers. To be fair, Europeans likely drove a massive increase in demand that seriously exacerbated an already existing problem. I was told that college classes would be much harder than high school, and that all the teachers would be much more strict. Turns out only some college classes were harder, and all the teachers treat you like an adult, so the opposite was true. There are 4 oceans. Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia are places. Electrons swirl around the nucleus in a distinct ring shape. I crap you not. In CPT 101. In college no less. My teacher said, a good reason to use Windows Update is because it will eventually upgrade you from the previous Windows you were using to the latest version. Example, Windows XP to Windows 7 just on updates alone. I walked out of class that day. Once in the 6th grade my teacher drew a diagonal line on the whiteboard. He then asked the class, is this line straight? I answered yes like any intelligent 6th grader. You are wrong, he said. It's a diagonal line so I can't be straight. WTF. You can't pee with a boner. Yes I freaking can. It just launches out like a fire hose straight at the wall behind the toilet. That dropping out would end my academic employment potential. That teacher actually bullied me endlessly and was one of the many reasons I dropped out. She was a good Christian woman TM though, so it was all good. Had a teacher in 8th grade tell me that I might as well drop out, since I was going to amount to nothing anyway. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.